So welcome to Live from Northwoods and Waters on this program in this beautiful fall day on October 25th, 2022. For those of you that are not familiar with Northwoods and Waters, our goal is to unite the people of the St. Croix River watershed on behalf of our shared natural, cultural, and historic resources in this beautiful place that many of us are fortunate to call home. The St. Croix watershed encompasses 2 states, 4 sovereign nations, almost 8,000 square miles, 18 counties, and the rest of the details you can use in some trivial pursuit, maybe. But we have about 12,000 years of human history here. This map is a boundary map of the proposed Northwoods and Waters of the St. Croix National Heritage Area, with many of the sites that we have in natural, cultural, and historic sites. Our goals are to create sustainable opportunities based on our heritage to connect the region. And of course, LIVE is one of the ways that we connect our region in order to help preserve and enhance those resources that we have. And then to increase awareness and understanding of our heritage and stories and the resources that demonstrate those sorts of stories, both for people who live here and for people who visit. The United States has 55 national heritage areas. Each of them tells a significant part of our nation's story. And when you look at this map, they're spread out not necessarily evenly. There's a ton of them over there on the East Coast and very few as you get out west. And as you'll notice, there are none in Minnesota and Iowa. And we hope to change that. We want to put our flag right there and national in our name, uniting this watershed. Our moderator tonight is Julie Kilpatrick. She is a St. Croix watershed steward, and she's not going to talk a lot about the mission, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. The St. Croix watershed steward, I've put a little mistake in there. The mission is to dramatically increase environmental stewardship ethics and activities in the St. Croix watershed. And that map on the left is, I think, a lovely depiction without any human kind of mapping things on there. It's just the water. And it just looks like a big heart with lots of veins, and certainly is the heart that beats within us, all of us that are on this call tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to Julie. Julie has a passion about this watershed that's unparalleled, and I am so happy that she's helping us out today. So thank you, Julie. And you need to unmute, Julie.
Thank you, Marty, for the introduction. Yeah, it's my pleasure tonight to help facilitate this talk around how we get kids involved in our watershed. So how do we get them involved? We have 3 speakers tonight that will be talking, and I'd like to introduce Kristen Neff first. She is a LEEP Lake Ecology Education Program Team Chair, and she co-founded the program in 2009. Her parents joined at its inception in the early 70s. So Christine grew up caring for the environment, and she has a passion for this work. She continues today through her work diving at the Barnes Aquatic Invasive Species boat in the summer and coordinating the LEEP program during the school year. She's served on the FOECLA Board of Directors since 2008. She'll have to tell us what FOECLA is. Along with Kristen is Melissa. She is a science education researcher and curriculum developer. She's joining us tonight from Alaska. She went to Northland College for her undergrad in fisheries, and her doctoral research was in juvenile bluegill foraging behavior. She is the co-founder of Data Nuggets program, which brings contemporary research into K through 16 classrooms. She's been involved with LEEP since 2018 as a program coordinator and has been involved in a variety of local environmental education projects. The next person I'm going to introduce who's here with us, who will speak after Christine and Melissa, is Wendy Tremblay. She is the Community Engagement Manager for Wild Rivers Conservancy. Wendy grew up in Stillwater, attended UW River Falls. Before joining Wild Rivers in May of 2021, Wendy worked in the environmental education field for over 12 years as a naturalist, teacher, and program coordinator. As the Community Engagement Manager, she guides outdoor programs and youth environmental education field trips, coordinating the intern program, and supports the volunteer community. I'm happy to say I have volunteered with Wendy with the Rivers Are Alive program. So we'll get started with the LEEP program with the speakers Melissa and Christine. So take it away.
Thank you.
And so as Melissa gets set up, this is Marty again. I just want to say, please use your chat function during any of these presentations and write to us, send your questions in, because the format of the evening is that we will hear from Christine and Melissa, and then we'll hear from Wendy, and they're going to talk. There's so much they could share. They're going to talk really fast and tell us as much as they can in their 20 minutes. And then we're going to take 10 minutes for a discussion about this whole idea of engaging youth in water ecology. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to Christine and Melissa.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to hear about our program tonight. We're happy to be here. What is LEEP? LEEP, the turnkey nature of LEEP is important. Teachers are super busy trying to get through their required curriculum. We offer a program for middle schoolers that is aligned with state standards and provide everything from materials, supplies, environmental specialists, cameras, field trip venue, transportation, all those things. And then LEEP is inserted into the curriculum with minimal inconvenience to the academic teachers. Makes it easy for them. Our purpose is to engage and launch youth in a positive lifelong relationship in environmental stewardship by providing hands-on experiences, encouraging critical thinking to help them discover the importance and interconnectedness of all the parts of the ecosystem, including globally, and how the health of these systems affects everyone. Learning their value and vulnerability leads to a sense of responsibility. The benefits of doing LEEP: do you want to grow your organization? People in lake and river associations, educators, environmentalists all have a common love of our beautiful natural resources and want to protect and preserve them. LEEP gives them the opportunity to be part of a living legacy. They can share more than money. They can help ensure the future survival of healthy lakes and rivers by sharing their passion for these beautiful resources with youth, whether taking students on the Woodland Trails food web or being a module leader out on the lake at a critical habitat site. LEEP is a very collaborative program with many volunteers who realize that by sharing their excitement and their personal narratives with students, they help them fall in love with our woods and waters. And in doing so, we do too. Wonderful thing. LEEP is appealing to local conservationists. It gives them the opportunity to educate and enrich students and volunteers while fulfilling the outreach component of their jobs. It reduces their prep work and maximizes their time with students. Students are excited to meet adult role models such as DNR or county environmentalists and foresters, and they may discover they have an interest in pursuing an environmental science career. Adaptability. The LEEP program curriculum was aligned with state standards from the beginning to make it adaptable for associations, districts, and other environmental associations across the state and region who can then pursue a program with their local schools, the goal being to reach as many youth as possible. Although written for middle school students, it is easily adaptable for different age groups. The modules can be used individually, so you can pick the topics that match your environmental site attributes and learning goals. They can easily be modified to fit with various programs from Scouts or 4-H to an association's summer education activity day. This is our broad overview. The LEEP program is centered around the cycles that are occurring in the fall and spring. Each outdoor lab has a corresponding indoor module so that we can explain, demonstrate, guide, and encourage the students' understanding in the classroom, enabling them to be more fully engaged in the outdoor lab testing on LEEP Day. Many of the middle school students we work with have never been in a canoe. Surprising, isn't it? Since their parents work in the summers, they haven't been allowed to spend much time near the water. The middle school age group works well for LEEP. They are becoming more independent and often have time to spend by the water with friends at that age, before full-time summer work becomes the norm. The LEEP program teaches them about native aquatic plants and invasive species, among other topics. In our area, curly-leaf pondweed was discovered on Middle Eau Claire Lake by a 7th grader during a LEEP field trip, and Eurasian water milfoil was found on George Lake by a 6th grader. The English language arts curriculum is an important component of our program, as is the pre-post assessment, which gives us empirical evidence to validate the LEEP program. The conceptual framework. All the LEEP indoor and outdoor labs are designed to be hands-on and experiential in nature. It is geared for all learning styles and is especially effective with students that may have learning disabilities or challenges. Our low student-teacher ratios provide wonderful opportunities for these students to actively participate in the labs and collaborative critical thinking. Time is dedicated for reflection and discussion about how the various modules interact at a local and global level. They learn how each piece of the puzzle contributes to the big picture, and they develop an understanding of where they fit in and how their personal choices, good or poor, keep the ecological puzzle together or contribute to its demise. They come to realize that by caring for the environment, they can do their part to keep our woods and waters healthy for the future of our community and world. Photography has been an important part of our program from its inception. We purchased disposable waterproof cameras for students to use for our first field trip as part of the hands-on component of the program. Later, we wrote and received a Small Lakes grant to purchase digital waterproof cameras for the students to have one camera per canoe pair. Photography offers multiple ways to learn and connect with our natural resources. Pictures are an important way for students to remember and report on their experiences, especially for students who struggle with writing skills. They are also used in creative ways as part of our English language arts assignments. And over to you, Melissa.
All right, thank you. As Chris mentioned, we have some topics that we cover in the fall at the beginning of the school year and others that we cover in the spring. So for example, the fall program explores aquatic plants and invasive species when they're flourishing, while the spring introduces students to macroinvertebrates just in time for the hatch out. Utilizing these seasonal patterns helps students make connections to the bigger picture. We bookend the program in the spring by building up to a really fun and educational Woodland Trails food web walk at a time when things are bare and muddy enough to find lots of evidence of animal activity, but also at a time when students can witness and study spring's renewal. Next, I will briefly go over each lesson to share the main activities and learning objectives. And at the very end, I'm going to share the website, so kind of keep that in mind. Maybe there's an activity here that you think would work well with a group that you work with. So in the critical habitat module, we want students to learn the features of habitats that are essential for living organisms, including humans. Importantly, critical habitat contributes to the fact that 90% of the living things in lakes and rivers are found along the shallow margins and shores. We like to start off the fall classroom visits with critical habitat because there are so many connections to the other topics. For the classroom lesson, we break down the important features of habitat and then learn about different critical habitat types and how they are designated by the Wisconsin DNR. Students are given a map with critical habitat sites to investigate. They then match the information given in the description to the needs of specific animals that may live in that critical habitat. During the field trip, students and chaperones canoe to nearshore critical habitat areas and use aquascopes to view, identify, and photograph each critical habitat site. The next one is water quality. In this lesson, in the classroom, students learn how to check the physical and chemical characteristics, including temperature, pH, clarity, and dissolved oxygen of a variety of water samples that we bring in. They're shown the same tests and equipment that they will use on the field trip. Once on the lake, students visit a deep water site where they collect water quality data. In both the classroom and the outdoor labs, students reflect and interpret their results about what the water quality means for various organisms that might live there. They reference a table that summarizes these water quality parameters and how to determine lake health. They make a qualitative assessment of the lake that helps them put the test in perspective for what types of organisms can live there. In this aquatic plants module, students learn about the role of aquatic plants in the lake ecosystem. Then there's many, but for a few, providing dissolved oxygen through photosynthesis, creating shelter for animals, and reducing erosion. In the classroom lab, students learn about biodiversity and how important it is to have many types of aquatic plants that can contribute to critical habitats. They are presented with samples and learn the difference between emergent, free-floating, submerged, and floating leaf aquatic plants. They are able to handle and compare the fresh samples to learn what traits to look for to identify common species. Once at the lake, students collect their own samples using a rake and pull them up from their canoes. They bring their plant samples back to the shore to identify them. And then next we have invasive species. We usually combine this lab with the aquatic plants lab and bring in invasive plant and invertebrate samples at the same time. Students learn about the local invasive species and how their destructive nature threatens our waters. Students discuss the attributes that help invasive species spread and diminish biodiversity. They learn to recognize and report any sightings they might discover locally, as Chris mentioned in the introduction. Finally, they make connections across the food web to see how these invasive species can have cascading effects throughout the lake ecosystem. And then for plankton, in the classroom, students review photosynthesis, which is a key topic that's covered in the middle school grades, but they put it in perspective of phytoplankton and how important these little organisms are to the lake's dissolved oxygen. They discover how these microscopic organisms are the base of the food web and think through what would happen if they were impacted by invasive species or poor water quality. We bring in a sample from a local lake for the students to investigate and find the main types of zooplankton and phytoplankton. This gives them practice making slides and using the microscopes. When they get to the field trip, they use plankton nets to collect their own samples from a dock and then investigate which types of plankton they are able to find from their own samples. And then the last fall lesson is fisheries management. So in this lesson, we want students to understand how the complex ecological dynamics that they've been learning about affect fish populations and how ecosystem balance is really important for sustainable fisheries management. In the indoor session, students explore case studies to examine strategies for what types of regulations are set for a lake based on the fish community. They make a conceptual model to illustrate the connections between the lake food web, water quality, habitat, and other ecological factors that could impact the fishery. During the field trip, they get to practice two methods of sampling nearshore fish communities using a seine net and a minnow trap. They measure the fish that they find and examine the diversity of fish species collected. So those were the fall topics, and then we come back in the spring and we introduce 3 new topics. We engage students in the fun Woodland Trails Food Energy Web hike that ties all of the concepts together. And then we conduct a very brief review of some of the fall aquatic topics. So one of the topics for the spring is shoreline restoration. In this lesson, students study the importance of intact shoreline and the key factors that impact erosion, such as slope, sunshine, plant communities, the soil type that's there, impervious surfaces, and human use of the site. During the indoor session, students examine a variety of pictures that illustrate different cases where development either improved or detracted from the shoreline erosion. Students are then given a topographic map of a nearby lake and design their own development project, thinking through where to place a cabin and a path to the lake. During the field trip session, students evaluate the shoreline on site. With the guidance of instructors, students choose which types of plants would be most beneficial for the site and plant them in their chosen area. Another spring topic is tree study. So where in this one, students learn important forestry skills and the value of shoreline trees. During the indoor session, samples are brought in so students can look at the differences between leaves, branches, and buds of local tree species. They use a wood slab to practice counting rings to age a tree, and then practice using a clinometer to estimate the tree height before going out on the field trip. During the field trip, they use these skills again. They go on a tree identification hike to explore the types of trees that are nearby. They work with a forester to collect a bore sample from a tree to estimate the age, and use a clinometer again to calculate tree height on site. And finally, the third spring topic is macroinvertebrates. For the indoor session, students learn about life cycles and use pictures of macroinvertebrates as a mock sample to investigate. Students use a dichotomous key to identify the species in their artificial sample. They then learn about how species have different tolerance levels and how macroinvertebrates can be used as indicators of water quality. They learn how to calculate the same biotic index that is used by professionals. They also discuss what it would mean if all of the intolerant species were not found in a sample. This is similar to the canary in the coal mine concept, because the absence of these species means the water quality is not good enough for them to survive. At the lake, students gather their own samples using D-nets and examine them in ice cube trays before releasing them. They then use the same techniques as the indoor session to classify the macroinvertebrates, calculate the biotic index, and determine the water quality of their site. And then after they've learned all of these great topics, we combine a lot of the key concepts into this food energy web hike. Students learn how living and non-living things are connected, and how energy starts with the sun and flows through the ecosystem. Students consider why there are more plants and algae than larger carnivorous animals, and how energy is lost as you go up the food and energy pyramid. They also consider what would happen if there were no natural predators and how the ecosystem would be set off balance. They make observations along a nature hike and find evidence of what is living there and record each organism's role in the food pyramid. And then finally, there's an aquatic study review. So in this piece, students go back out into the canoes and review key points from the previous fall modules of water quality, critical habitat, and aquatic plant identification. Stations are set up near shore, and students rotate between the 3 stations during the review. Sorry, I'm developing a sore throat today. And as part of our whole program, we really emphasize the canoeing components as we see it as a lifelong skill that helps students develop a passion for their local waters. We want the LEEP content to go beyond science and connect with students' personal lives as well. One important element is the teamwork that canoeing builds. Students must work together and communicate as they are navigating the canoes. In addition, the repeated practice at least 3 times throughout the school year builds their confidence in getting on the water, and they may find themselves more likely to jump in a canoe that they see at a camp, a friend's house, or maybe their own backyard. While they may not feel confident in their abilities at the beginning, the opportunity to repeatedly paddle around in the canoes, it gives them a sense of familiarity when they revisit canoeing during the aquatic studies review. All right, back to Chris.
Do we have time for me to keep going or what?
I would say 30 seconds if you could wrap it up.
Okay, so real quick, we have an English language area arts curriculum that's it's increased the effectiveness of our program by reaching students at a core level in the process of using their creativity to express their experiences and what they've learned about lake ecology. They increase the depth of their understanding and do various projects throughout the year. We go in and are their audience in the spring, and they do these great slideshows and posters and games, and we hear poems and all these wonderful things. And it's a wonderful opportunity to witness these students expressing a newfound relationship and appreciation for our beautiful woods and waters. We go in for a wrap-up day, and we quiz them, we give prizes, we give them a certificate that has talking points about each of the modules, so they can take those home and share them as a sense of accomplishment with their family members and what they've learned. We do a pre-post test, which is done before the program and after the program, which gives empirical evidence of what they've learned and the value of the program, which helps with school administrators, grants, and those kind of things. We use tons and tons of volunteers, which are wonderful, and all of our environmental experts are wonderful, and communication is really important. We have forums online that help with that, as well as our curriculum forms. We have a lot of helping forms that we send out to make sure that everybody's in the loop. And in summary, LEEP provides a wonderful opportunity for local association members to create a living legacy, sharing their experiences and passion for the woods and water with students. The program is adaptable. You can take what we've done and make it work for your student group. The important thing is that the students learn to appreciate how valuable, vulnerable, and interconnected our natural resources are. LEEP helps communities and associations provide ways for the students to personally connect with natural resources through hands-on experiences that engage them with nature. And we have a lot of people to acknowledge, so maybe you can go back later and look at our acknowledgement page, including the people that provide their properties for us to do our field trips. And one of them is on today, Carol Lebrecht. Thank you, Carol. Ted Eastland and Carol Andreessen, Quentin Ruprecht, and the town of Barnes. Those are the properties that we've been on, and I just wanted to add them because I don't think they're on there. And thank you very much. I appreciate it, and Melissa appreciates it. And Friends of the Eau Claire Lakes, that's what FOECLA stands for. Friends of the Eau Claire Lakes, that's our lake association.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, here's our contact information. Amy Davies is listed on here because she is the new coordinator replacing me. So those are the email addresses, and then the website is here. You can click on LEEP to find all of the materials. If there's time at the end and people want to see a quick tour of the website, I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you so much, Kristen and Melissa. That was a wonderful presentation. I learned tons. I've got questions. But we have another group we're going to be listening to tonight too. So thank you so much for that presentation. And we're going to move it on to Wendy Tremblay from Wild Rivers Conservancy.
Unmute. There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Tremblay, and I'm here to talk a little bit about Rivers Are Alive. It's a K-12 environmental education program hosted by Wild Rivers Conservancy. So a little bit about me, and Julie gave me a little bit of an introduction in the beginning, and I think you touched on most of the things. I grew up in Minnesota, lots of fishing happening in my family. So this is me fishing with my dad up at Lake of the Woods, kind of the northern tip of Minnesota. I live in Stillwater currently. I've got 2 boys. I try to get them out hiking and doing any kind of outdoor activities as much as I can. And as Julie mentioned, a lot of my career has been in environmental education. So this is me at a nature preschool where I was the nature specialist for 8 years. The Ugly Pumpkin is a great book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And then currently I work at Wildrose Conservancy. My title there is the Community Engagement Manager. And I oversee all things community. So any way that we touch community, I sort of have a hand in. So our volunteers, our internships, our public programs and kayak paddles, and then also our youth program, which we'll get into today. So who is Wild Rivers Conservancy? So our mission statement is to inspire stewardship to forever ensure the rare ecological integrity of the St. Croix and Namakagon Riverway. We are also the official nonprofit partner of the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway, which is part of the National Park Service. So you might be wondering, wait a minute, the Park Service is on here, then is the St. Croix a national park? The answer is yes. So this map might look familiar. Marty showed this earlier. This is the St. Croix Watershed. And the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway was one of the very first areas that was designated under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act of 1968. The lower St. Croix, so the area from kind of Stillwater and below, was added in 1972. And so together, the St. Croix and Namakagon rivers make up about 252 miles of federally protected riverway. So our watershed is close to 8,000 square miles, which, fun fact, is about the same size of the state of New Jersey. And I also learned today that it's also about the same size as the country of Wales, which I didn't know that one. So Rivers Are Alive is our K-12 environmental education program, and we offer that in partnership with Wild Rivers Conservancy and the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. We work throughout the watershed in every season. So we're doing snowshoeing, ice fishing in the winter. We're out on the rivers doing paddle programs, some mucking programs, things like that in the summer. And it really is a true partnership with the National Park Service. So we have 3 staff on our education and outreach team at the Conservancy. So in order to get to all of the schools that we do field trips at, we need a lot more than just myself and Amy and Katrina, who are pictured here, who are 2 of our outdoor educators. We also rely very heavily on the National Park Service and their education staff with their park rangers to come out to the schools and do field trips. So oftentimes when a school schedules a field trip, it might be with, so the people that we send out to those field trips could be just Katrina from our team. It could be just a National Park Service park ranger. It could be a combination of the 2. And then we also rely really heavily on volunteers as well. It's a big area to try to cover with all of the field trips that we do, and trying to reach as many kids as we can within the watershed. So we really rely heavily on our volunteers to make that happen as well. So Rivers Are Alive, because we are watershed wide, we try to bring the river to you or to wherever you are within the watershed. So all of our programs are meant to meet you either at the river. So we do a lot with some state parks. So Minnesota Interstate, Wisconsin Interstate, William O'Brien, just to name a few of the state parks that we often meet schools at. We can also come to your schoolyard or your classroom. So this is a group of students at their school who are doing a program. So that kind of helps with the busing or transportation issue. Or you can also meet us at one of the visitor centers. So the National Park Service for the St. Croix, we have 2 visitor centers. One is in Trego, Wisconsin, and the other one is down in St. Croix Falls. So we could meet you there for a field trip as well. And then we also have, kind of thanks to COVID, we have a number of virtual programs as well that you can do in your classroom, just with a couple of links on our website. And then this one, which I'll play, it's just about a minute long, but it gives you a little introduction into one of our more popular programs.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Rivers Are Alive Let's Go Mucking program. My name is Ranger Liz. I'm sure that a lot of you have gone out to look at a river, and you look out along the riverway and you might see a few birds, maybe a turtle by the side of the river, maybe a frog that might hop in, but maybe not a lot to look at for wildlife. Let's go underneath the surface. Underneath the water, there is so many kinds of life. You'll see all sorts of vegetation swaying in the current of the river. You go to the bottom of the river, you will see some fish looking for some food. And if you go to the sides of the river, you might see macroinvertebrates looking for places to hide. Wait, macroinvertebrates? What is that? If you want to find out what is a macroinvertebrate, look at our next video.
You want to play that again? There we go. So Let's Go Mucking is one of our more popular programs. This is where students can become biologists and use a variety of tools and materials to collect, observe, and identify tiny creatures that are really big indicators of how healthy a body of water is. So I see some similarities in this program as well as our previous program that was explained. Let's Go Mucking is using aquatic macroinvertebrates, or they're commonly referred to as bioindicators because their presence or absence in a body of water can provide information about the water quality where it was found. So you see here a group of students who collected some macroinvertebrates from the pond here. This was at a camp that we were at this summer, and they're looking at the key to try to figure out what they have. And then that can tell them a little bit about the water quality at their camp. And then beyond Let's Go Mucking, we also have some other field trip options. So for all ages, some of our options include the mucking, as we saw, but also Let's Go Birding, Let's Go Snowshoeing, and then there's an NPS scavenger hunt and film that we can do at the visitor centers for any age. For kindergarten through second grade, we have a Meet a Mussel program and Observation Olympics. Grades 3 through 5, we have a out of place activity. It's really fun, interactive game that is a introduction into aquatic invasive species. We also have 2 programs called River Connections and What is a Watershed, which gets into a little bit more of the geology of what is a watershed and what makes a river. Grades 6 through 8, we have a Watershed in Jeopardy, which is another aquatic invasive species program, and another mussel, a little bit more advanced mussel program called The Great Mussel Mystery. And then grades 9 through 12, we have a program we call Conservation Careers. And then beyond our field trips, we also have some kind of, we call them special projects. So these are ways that are a little bit unique that we can get kids out on the water. So this is our Wild River Journey program, where we get 4th graders out on the St. Croix using paddle boats in both Stillwater and Taylor's Falls, Minnesota. So we have a number of different stations aboard each paddle boat. One of them is sort of that what is a watershed model. Another station is a birding station. You can see some students there birding at a heron rookery in Stillwater here. And then the other program is a called Log Jam, and it is a really fun interactive program with the National Park Service where they can The students actually dress up in period costumes and take the trip along with a white pine log as it goes down the river. So it's kind of a fun way to experience the history along the St. Croix. Then another special project is our Youth Summit. So our Youth Summit happens each year around right around Earth Day. This year will be on April 20th. And the Youth Summit is meant for students to be able to really learn a little bit more about what's happening in the St. Croix watershed. So we often bring on any research projects that are happening. It's also a way for peers to learn from each other. So last year we had a couple of schools that were doing some experiments that were able to present what they found to the other youth that were present at the summit. So it's a really great virtual conference. Last year we had about 450 students from throughout the watershed that joined us on that day. So you know, being in person would be great, but a virtual conference has really allowed us to be a little bit more accessible without the transportation costs that schools can. And then we have teacher workshops. So our teacher workshops happen 3 times a year, usually March and then July and again in December. So we have one coming up here on December 3rd. Our teacher workshops are a great way to network with other teachers, to learn a little bit more in depth about what our field trip opportunities are. And then we also include some type of outdoor activity. So our winter teacher workshop would include a snowshoe hike. Our spring teacher workshop includes birding, and then our summer workshop actually gets teachers out on the water in our kayaks. That's a lot of fun. And if you are ready to schedule a field trip, we do have a Rivers Are Alive page on our website, or you can also email me. I have my email address listed there, and we can get you on the calendar. That's all I have for Rivers Are Alive.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was wonderful to see. And for people, Wendy had a coworker that couldn't make it tonight. Mm-hmm. Maybe you noticed that on the list of presenters. So thank you, Wendy. So now this is a great time for us to look at having a little discussion. And I'd like to lead it off by just opening it up or sending this question to the presenters, and then other people can send their questions too. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits and challenges of engaging youth in the watershed? And any of you can step forward, the presenters.
I can go first. I mean, I think the benefits are pretty extensive. You know, when you have that group of kids out there, and especially when we're able to get students out on the river that haven't been able to be on the river, you know, you see that kind of excitement in their eyes, and you know, it's a chance that a lot of kids don't get to have. You know, I grew up in Stillwater, and my friends maybe had boats and were able to get out on the river, but I wasn't able to get out on the river. So I think it's great to be able to just engage with the kids in any way that we can. So I think the benefits are just are everywhere for that. I think some of the challenges that we find is just making sure that teachers know that we're here and that we have the curriculum and the field trips available. You know, we offer them for free. We don't ask for any fees for our field trips, and so really it's just a transportation cost that the schools would need to have. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's just making sure that they understand that we're here and that they know how to reach us.
How about you, Christine or Melissa? Do you have anything to add about the benefits or challenges?
Well, the benefits from our perspective are that we live in a lake community up here in the Drummond School District and Barnes and Cable and all of this. And the lake health is precarious. I mean, the lakes are good now, but it's, you know, it's precarious. And so a lot of the children at the school and the youth at the school, they're not out in the lakes. They don't live on the lakes necessarily. Some of them do. Like we said, a lot of them don't even, I've never been in a canoe when we do the program, and this is usually 7th grade. But anyway, we have found when we started, we were trying to do a scholarship for a high schooler at the school, and they wanted to earmark it, and we had our members in the Lake Association are giving money for the environment and things like that, and so we wanted to earmark it, you know, for environment or some kind of science. So we end up going this way instead. We have a lot of citizen or community scientists in our area that do all the water quality and aquatic invasives and all these kind of things. It's a very big area for retired educators. So we decided to do a field trip, and that's how it all started. And then we had a retired curriculum writer who said, I can write a curriculum for this, and we can do this and spread it statewide, you know, and it could be a big statewide thing. But the benefit was that we had people who had a great joy and passion for the environment. They came up here, they live up here as retired educators because, or science people, because they love this area and these lakes, and they want to take care of them and keep them beautiful. So for them and our volunteers to be able to share what they love about the area and that passion with kids that don't get a chance to get out on the water, you know, that don't know how to canoe, or maybe if they do, they just, all they see is it's something fun we can get out and do, and they don't really learn about stewardship. This is just a win-win situation because they come out and they learn all about the environment and the ecosystem and all that, but they also get the experience with these volunteers who are sharing their stories and their passion with them and getting those kids excited, the narratives and everything. And the kids really do get a chance to fall in love with the lakes. And when you fall in love with something, you want to take care of it. And so that's the big deal for us. And the volunteers love to come out, because rather than just giving money or something, to be able to come out and be part of this and have these kids running all over, they always come out and they say, all this craziness or confusion. I said, no, this is organized chaos or whatever, because the kids are learning and they're having so much fun and they're so excited. And it's every LEEP day is just a wonderful day and a wonderful experience. And we always say they get something out of it no matter what. And the big thing is that they want to get out on the lake again, and they want to come out and not sit in front of a computer necessarily all the time, but get out and do that. So the challenges during COVID, we weren't able to do the program. So last year we took the previous year's 7th graders, who are now 8th graders, and we did a dual program both in the fall and the spring. And it takes a lot more volunteers. There's a lot of dedication to do that, but it was successful and we did it, and the kids got the experience, and that was the important thing.
Great. Thank you. So we can open it up to, you know, questions, or if Melissa, you have something else to add, we can open it up to anyone.
We have some questions that have come in, Julie, from in chat. And one, I think, is to Wendy. Do you have a southern range for rivers are alive? Is Hudson, Wisconsin in your area?
Yes. Hudson's definitely in our area. We travel, I'll tell you, looking at our fall schedule, we were over in Moose Lake, Minnesota. So kind of that northern central area in Minnesota. We were over in Trigo. We do programs in Hayward, Cable, kind of that area as well. We go all the way down to, River Falls. We've had programs in River Falls this fall. We're doing an ice fishing program down in Prescott this winter. So we're all over the place. Yep. Yeah. Hudson is definitely not too far away.
You're all over the watershed is what you are.
We are. Yes. And
then there's another question. Tova had a question for, I think this was about LEEP. She writes that she loves it, especially the student research and discovery component, and wondering if there's a write-up about the students who discovered the invasives, and maybe they could make a presentation to the Lake Association of LGA about their findings.
Wow, that's great. An article about them. It was a while back. We've been working on those. Well, actually, George Lake, they actually got rid of the milfoil, or they haven't had it back since they hit it right away and treated it. But I would have to look into that. If you can pass me the email or whatever and the name on, I can look into that. As far as a presentation, we have been asked to speak at the Northwest Lakes Conference with students to present about the LEEP program, but have students. And so we're hoping to have a current student and an older student who's gone into the field of forestry. And he came back and volunteered while he was at school for forestry too in our spring program. So we're hoping to have some students to help with that presentation. So anyway, if you could pass the contact along to me, that would be good.
Wendy, this seems like a good presentation for the Youth Leadership Conference, since students are involved in lakes ecology also.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I bet you were. I could see the wheels turning.
Yeah, that would be great.
I have to say, just personally, I've known about both of these programs, and I'm absolutely astounded at how much bigger both of them are than I had any idea. The fact that you're using language arts to enhance LEAP is just, I'd love to be at one of those student presentations. I mean, that's just brilliant. You guys have done so much with the curriculum. And is there a cost for the curriculum, or are you making this all free to anybody who wants to do it?
Yeah, it's all public domain, and it's all listed on our website. That's where Melissa was going to show anybody who wants to see. It was created to be used across that's why it's state aligned, curriculum is state aligned. So it's free. And then what our Lake Association did was there was a freeze on budget at the time in the state, well, at our school and in the state of Wisconsin when we started out. So we paid for the school bus, brought the kids out, and we have donations for their cookie break and all that kind of stuff from the grocery store, and we do all those kind of things for them. So it's totally free, but the program can be used by any group or lake association, whatever. All that curriculum is online. We have all the helpful forms, and it can be provided in Word format where it can be edited however, and made to fit whatever organization wants to use it. So
yeah, and we just did an extensive round of creating lesson plans that are more approachable for educators and what teachers need to know as far as state standards and what objectives and topics are covered. But we also have instructor guides for each module that go over step by step what we do with students, so that you can look at that and review it and see if it's something that would fit what your learning goals are and maybe inspire some ideas for what you would want to do.
I would think especially in lake rich areas, like I live in the Chisago Lakes area, and we have lots of lake associations, and this just seems like an absolute natural fit for areas that have so many lakes.
Yep, and it is, because it's like I said, it's a way to build your volunteer base too, because the volunteers really appreciate the opportunity to share with the students and to pass on their love, and they think it's important, so it's really good for lake associations and districts and such. And we're happy to help. So
we have about a minute left, and for your presentation, I have a couple of other things I wanted to share with you. But we have Jim Bakken on and Carol Lebrecht, both of who have had an involvement with LEAP, and I wonder if either of you want to have anything to say about what's happened here.
I'll just say a couple words. Obviously, the kids come out to my property here on Boney Lake in the fall, so I'm the September base, and they have their stuff set up on my deck with their microscopes and tables out in the yard, and the canoes coming up and going from the dock, and volunteers that come with their boats for safety boats and bring their pontoons for all the research out in the lakes. It's really exciting. And I would encourage anybody who's vaguely interested to come and visit either the September or the spring workshops that's going on when the field trip's going on, because you will be hooked, absolutely hooked, to be able to bring this to your community or via your lake association or whatever, because it's just really, really inspiring. So anyway, I enjoy it every September. I enjoy it. So that's it.
Thank you, Carol. Jim, any comments? Jim, any comments?
Sure. I'm working off my phone here, so it might be a little awkward here. But anyway, yeah, I've participated in the LEEP program, and the most impressive thing that I have experienced is the energy when those kids get off that bus. You know, and it's from the time they get there until the time they leave, they're just having a great time, and not only having a great time, but learning a lot of stuff too. And it's something that they're going to keep with them forever. And I wish I had that experience when I was in 7th grade or whatever. But I think it's a great program, and Chris and Melissa have put a lot of work into that. So yeah, I thank them for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Final comments, Julie? Final comments?
I guess I will just say the idea of reaching out to Boy Scouts and 4-H was a new, I don't know why I wouldn't have thought of that, but I thought that was an important thing to bring forward, and that's something we can keep in mind. And I appreciate all the speakers tonight, the wonderful programs that you do, and yeah, I have nothing else.
Sure.
I'm going to I have just a couple of other things to share with you. This was our presentation tonight. Next time, we are going to go back to our open mic night, which is totally fun, absolutely unpredictable. And you get to hear stories and poems. And I think we have someone who's going to do a book launch. There's just all kinds of things that happen. This program happens every 4th Tuesday night, same time, 7 o'clock. And there's always something new that is happening. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Just a second, here we go. That slide is in there just to remind me to tell you that all of our programs are recorded and you can watch them at your own leisure. This one will be the same.